I never thought I'd sit here with my hands trembling while holding the phone, listening to the words that shattered my world. My own daughter, Janice, was on the other end, her voice steady but cold as she delivered the news I could barely process. Mom, I sold the house. The words echoed in my mind, circling until they lost all meaning. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, hoping I had heard her wrong. "What do you mean you sold the house?" I asked, though my voice came out as a whisper. "I didn't know what else to do, Mom," she said quickly. "Terry's debts, they've piled up, and we just couldn't keep up anymore. The house was the only thing we could sell to pay them off. I'm sorry, I didn't want you to find out like this. God bless you, my friends, for joining me today. Please tell me what time it is where you are." Do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so right away. I love you all. Now back to my story. The air left my lungs, and I felt as if the floor beneath me just crumbled. The house, my home, was gone. My heart pounded as I tried to understand how my daughter could make such a decision without me. "Janice," I finally managed, "how could you? How could you sell the house without even talking to me first?" That was the one thing I had left. Silence filled the line, long and heavy. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a hint of irritation rather than remorse. "Mom, I thought it was the right thing. I had to help Terry. You know how bad things have been. We couldn't keep up with the bills. I thought, I thought you'd understand." Understand? Understand what? I had worked my entire life for that home. It wasn't just four walls. It was where I raised Janice, where every corner carried a memory. And now, she had sold it as if it meant nothing. I clenched the phone tighter, trying to steady my breathing. "You don't even care about how this affects me, do you? You've sold my home, Janice. My home. I don't know where to go now." Her voice softened, but it didn't make the sting any less sharp. "I didn't want to hurt you, Mom. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I was doing what was best for all of us." I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the tears, but it was her next words that broke me completely. "You're a homeless person now," she said, almost casually. The sentence tore through me like a knife. I froze, unable to breathe. How could she say that to me? I was the one who had given her everything. I had stayed up at night to comfort her when she was sick, worked extra shifts to pay for her college, and sacrificed my own happiness so she could have hers. And this was how she repaid me, by stripping away the only thing I had left. "I'll figure something out," I said finally, my voice hoarse. I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands shook as I placed the phone back on the table. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the walls that at once felt like a refuge. I could still hear the echo of laughter from years past, see the birthdays, the holidays, the quiet nights when everything felt safe. All gone now. I didn't know where I'd sleep next week or even tomorrow. But what hurt most wasn't losing the house. It was realizing that my daughter, my only child, had chosen someone else's future over mine. The room felt colder. I wanted to scream, to call her back and demand an explanation, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. She had made her choice. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to find warmth in the emptiness. I had no idea where I would go next, but one thing was certain. This betrayal was only the beginning. Has a family member ever made a decision that left you feeling betrayed? How did you handle it? Tell me in the comments section. The days following Janice's call blurred into one long, painful stretch of confusion and disbelief. I had never felt so alone. I wandered through my days in a daze, trying to convince myself that things would somehow get better, that this nightmare would end. But the truth kept gnawing at me like a constant ache in my chest. My daughter had sold my home without a second thought, without asking for my opinion or even trying to find another way out. I sat in the same chair by the window, the same place I always sat when I needed to think, but there was no peace here now, no comfort in the quiet. The walls of the house I had loved for so long felt like a cage. The familiar creaks of the floorboards, the scent of old wood and dust. It was all still here, but it was no longer mine, and I was no longer sure of my place in it. The phone rang, pulling me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the caller ID. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I picked it up. Hello? A voice on the other end was low, almost urgent. Susan Robert? I frowned. Yes, who is this? You don't know me, but I know you. I know what's been happening with your daughter and her husband. My heart skipped a beat. My first thought was that it was some kind of prank, but the seriousness in the voice made me stop. What do you mean? I asked, my voice sharp. There's a lot more going on here than you realize, Susan. I can't say much, but you need to be careful. Janice and Terry are mixed up in something dangerous, and if you're not careful, you could end up caught in the middle of it. I stood up, suddenly feeling lightheaded. What are you talking about? Who are you? I demanded, my hand gripping the edge of the table as my thoughts raced. What are you trying to say? I can't say too much, but you need to start asking questions. Someone's watching them, watching you, and I don't think it's going to end well if you don't figure this out fast. I'm just trying to warn you before it's too late. Before I could speak again, the line went dead. I stood there, holding the phone, my mind racing. What was this person talking about? How did they know about Janice and Terry? And why would they call me now, out of nowhere? I had so many questions, but no answers. I felt like I was spinning in place, caught between the pain of my daughter's betrayal and the uncertainty of what was really happening behind the scenes. Something was wrong. Something was much deeper than I had realized. But what could I do? I paced back and forth in the living room, my heart hammering in my chest. The voice on the phone had sounded genuine, urgent. This wasn't just some prankster. Whoever they were, they knew something. Something about my daughter, my son-in-law, and the mess they had dragged me into. I had to find out what it was. I couldn't sit here and wait, hoping for answers that might never come. But where would I even begin? I couldn't go to Janice. Not yet. Not after everything that had happened. She had sold my house, and I still hadn't fully processed the hurt from that. But I knew deep down that I couldn't just ignore this warning. If there was something dangerous going on, I had to know what it was. I needed to protect myself and Janice, whether she realized it or not. The next day, I hired a private investigator. I knew it was a risk, but I needed answers. The idea of digging into my daughter's life, into the things she'd hidden from me, made my stomach churn, but I didn't see another option. I had to know the truth. As the investigator worked on gathering information about Terry and Markel, I tried to distract myself. But the thought of someone else knowing more about my daughter than I did made my skin crawl. What kind of person could she have become, that even strangers knew what she was involved in? Hours felt like days as I waited for updates. Every call, every email seemed to take me further into the unknown. The fear that this mystery might destroy everything I thought I knew about my daughter, my family, was overwhelming. That night, I sat in the dark, staring at the phone in my hand, debating whether or not to call Janice. I needed to ask her, to confront her, but something held me back. How could I face her knowing she'd sold my home? What else had she been hiding? I didn't know the answers, but I knew one thing. I couldn't ignore this any longer. Do you think it's ever okay to keep a big secret from your loved ones, even if it's to protect them? Tell me in the comments section. The investigator I hired was quick to get to work, but even as I waited for answers, my stomach twisted with unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a world I wasn't ready to face. I thought I knew everything about my daughter, Janice. I raised her to be independent, strong, but the longer I lived in the aftermath of her betrayal, the more I realized how little I really knew. I spent the next few days pacing my small apartment, too restless to sit still. It was late one evening when the call came. My heart skipped as I grabbed the phone. It was the investigator. "Mrs. Robert," he began, his voice calm but grave, "I've got some information for you." I braced myself. "What have you found?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I had no idea what he would say, but I feared the worst. "The debts your daughter and her husband have been talking about, they're far deeper than just financial trouble," he said. "Terry's involved in some shady business deals, illegal ones. He's been laundering money through various investments. It's bad, Susan. Worse than you can imagine." My mind raced, and I felt as if I'd just been hit by a freight train. I'd always known Terry had a questionable past, but money laundering? This was a whole new level of danger. My thoughts immediately went to Janice. How could she have gotten tangled up in this? How could she not have told me? The investigator's voice pulled me back to the present. "And that's not all. There's someone else involved, a man named Markel Jones." I froze. The name sent a chill through me. Markel, Janice's first love. The man who had come into her life like a whirlwind, charming her, then disappearing just as quickly after a scandal that nearly ruined him. I hadn't heard that name in years. I didn't want to hear it again. "Markel's back, Susan," the investigator continued, "and it looks like he's been helping Terry with these illegal activities. He's the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. He's a lot more dangerous than you remember." I couldn't breathe. Markel? After all these years? He was the last person I ever expected to hear about again, but somehow he'd managed to creep back into Janice's life, dragging her, and Terry, further into the depths of something I wasn't sure they could escape. "Is Janice involved in this?" I asked, my voice trembling. The investigator hesitated. "I can't say for sure, but I've found evidence that suggests she's more involved than she lets on. She may not know the full extent of what Terry and Markel are doing, but she's in the middle of it, and she's been covering for them." My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I thought I knew my daughter. I thought I had raised her to make the right choices, to avoid the people who would lead her down the wrong path. But somehow, she had allowed herself to be dragged into this web of lies and deceit, and I wasn't sure if I could ever help her get out. "What do I do now?" I whispered, the weight of it all settling in on me. "You have to be careful, Susan," the investigator warned. "This isn't just about debts anymore. Terry and Markel are involved in something bigger, something dangerous. You need to get to Janice before they do. If you wait too long, it could be too late." The line went silent for a moment, and I let the words sink in. What was happening to my family? To my daughter? How had things gotten so out of control? I spent the rest of the evening in a fog. The more I learned, the more I realized that I had no idea who my daughter had become. She was involved in a world I couldn't even begin to understand. And worse, it seemed like the more I dug, the further she was slipping away from me. It wasn't just the debts. It wasn't just the house. It was everything. Every lie, every hidden truth was coming to light, and I had no choice but to face it head on, even if it meant confronting Janice about things I didn't want to know. The next day, I decided I needed to talk to her. I had to hear the truth from her, no matter how much it hurt. But when I called, she didn't answer. I left a message, asking her to meet me, to talk about everything. I needed her to understand the consequences of her actions. I needed her to see how deep the hole she was in had become. But as the hours passed, and I sat in the silence of my apartment, a sinking feeling washed over me. I wasn't sure I could save her anymore. How far would you go to protect your family, even if it meant breaking the law? I sincerely want to know. I had spent days turning the truth over in my mind, trying to make sense of everything I had learned. Each piece of the puzzle seemed to lead me further down a path I didn't want to follow. My daughter Janice had been lying to me. Worse, she had been lying to herself. She was tangled up in something far bigger than I could have ever imagined, and I couldn't stand the thought of it anymore. I had to talk to her, face to face. I needed to hear her side of the story, and I needed to make her understand what was at stake. The call was the hardest thing I'd done in years. I dialed her number, my fingers cold against the phone's screen. It rang several times before she picked up. Hello? Her voice sounded strained, like she had been expecting this call, but wasn't ready for it. Janice, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. In person, now. There was a long pause, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. But then I heard her sigh. Okay, Mom, I'll be there in an hour, she said, her voice almost apologetic, but I couldn't read her tone. Not anymore. When she arrived, I couldn't read her expression. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking like she didn't know if she should step inside or turn around and walk away. She was the same Janice I had raised, the same girl I'd nurtured, loved, and watched grow up, but the distance between us now felt miles apart. I motioned for her to come in, and she hesitated before stepping into the room. Sit down, I said, more sharply than I intended. My patience was thin, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold it together. She sat down across from me, her eyes avoiding mine. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't want you to find out like this. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Janice, I need you to be honest with me. What is going on? I said, my voice trembling now. You sold my house. You've been covering for Terry's debts. And now I find out that Markel is back in the picture, and you're mixed up in all of it. How deep does this go? She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hands clenched in her lap. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she said, looking up at me. Her eyes were filled with a mix of guilt and something else. Fear, maybe. I didn't know what else to do. Terry was drowning, and I couldn't let him sink. And when Markel came back into our lives, I thought maybe he could help. I didn't realize how much he'd already dragged us into. I could feel the anger rising inside me. Help? Janice? He's a criminal. And Terry? Terry has been hiding everything from you. I've hired a private investigator. I know everything. The money laundering, the lies. Do you really think you're helping by covering for them? I thought I was protecting you, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't want you to know how bad it was. I didn't want you to see how far Terry had fallen, how deep Markel's influence was, but everything got out of control so fast. I thought if I just kept it all under wraps, we could get through it. Get through it? I repeated, my voice rising. By selling my house? By putting us both in danger? You've been lying to me, Janice. I never thought you'd do this to me. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for the first time, I saw the desperation in her. I didn't know what else to do, Mom. I didn't know who else to turn to. Terry needed me. Markel. He came back and promised things would be okay. I thought we could fix it all together. But now, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix any of it. I sat there staring at her, my heart breaking in two. How had it come to this? How had my daughter, the woman I had raised, Fallen so far? I wish you had come to me, I said quietly, the anger in my voice now gone. I could have helped you. We could have figured this out together. I'm sorry, Mom, Janice said, her voice barely above a whisper. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to fix everything. I stared at her for a long moment, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. I wanted to yell, to shake her, to demand answers. But instead, all I could do was ask the question that had been eating away at me since the day she sold my house. Do you love him, Janice? I asked, my voice soft but urgent. Do you love Terry more than you love me? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes flickered, and I could see the conflict in them. Finally, she spoke. I love him, Mom, I do. But I don't know if I can keep going like this. I don't know if I can keep lying to you, to myself. Her words hung in the air, heavy and painful. I didn't know if there was a way back from this. Would you ever risk everything for love, even if it meant betraying the ones you care about? Because right now, I feel betrayed by my daughter. The days that followed my conversation with Janice felt like I was caught in some sort of fog, where every step forward only made me feel more lost. She left that day with the same conflicted look on her face, and I didn't know if I had made any difference. She was still tangled in Terry and Markel's mess, and I was left with more questions than answers. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation we'd had. Janice's words echoed in my mind. I love him, Mom. I do. But how could she love him more than she loved me? She had crossed a line, one that made me wonder if I'd ever be able to trust her again. And yet, a small part of me wanted to believe that she hadn't gone too far, that there was still a chance to pull her out of the mess she'd gotten herself into. I needed to know more. I needed to see the full scope of what Janice had gotten herself involved in. The truth, as ugly as it was, could not be ignored any longer. The private investigator had come through with more details, and what I was learning only deepened my sense of dread. Terry and Markel's operations weren't just about debts anymore. They were involved in money laundering, fraud, and something that shook me to my core, connections to organized crime. This wasn't just a small-time scam. It was far more dangerous, and Janice was right in the middle of it. The deeper I looked, the more I realized that she had no idea just how much trouble she was really in. I sat at my kitchen table, the papers scattered before me, feeling the weight of every word. The investigator had uncovered records linking Terry and Markel to a network of criminal enterprises that reached further than I could ever have imagined. These weren't just bad decisions or careless mistakes. They were calculated, dangerous actions that could cost them, and anyone involved, everything. And then, buried in the last few pages of the report, I found something that sent a cold shiver through me. Janice's name. It wasn't just an innocent mention either. It was clear that she was involved in more than just helping Terry and Markel. She was listed as a key player in several transactions, money transfers, investments in shady companies, and even communications with people I didn't recognize. I sat there, frozen, staring at the papers. Janice wasn't just a victim in all this. She was an active participant. And that realization hurt more than I could have prepared for. I felt betrayed on every level. She had lied to me, yes, but she had also lied to herself, thinking she could fix things by getting involved in something she didn't fully understand. I wanted to scream, to call her, to demand answers, but I knew it wouldn't help. I couldn't force her to see the truth until she was ready to face it herself. I had to do something, though. I couldn't just sit back and wait for the worst to happen. I needed to protect her. The phone rang again, startling me. I picked it up without looking at the caller ID, a part of me hoping it was Janice, though I knew it wasn't. This is Susan Robert, I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. It's me, the investigator said. I've got more on Markel. It's bad, Susan. Really bad. My heart dropped. What is it now? I asked, already fearing the answer. There's a meeting tomorrow. Terry, Markel, and some of their associates are meeting with someone big. I don't know who yet, but it's not good. If you want to find out more, if you want to stop them, you'll need to act fast. I'm sending you the details now. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. This was it. If I wanted to save Janice, I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront them. I had to stop them before it was too late. The next morning, I gathered everything I had, everything the investigator had uncovered, and made my way to the meeting location. It wasn't far, but the closer I got, the more my nerves tightened. I couldn't afford to mess this up. If Janice was involved in all this, she was in way over her head. But she was still my daughter, and I would do anything to pull her out of this nightmare. As I walked toward the building where the meeting was supposed to take place, I couldn't help but wonder if it was already too late, if Janice was already too far gone, too deep into this world to be saved. I couldn't let that be the case. Not yet. Have you ever uncovered something that made you question everything you thought you knew about someone you loved? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. I stood outside the building, my heart hammering in my chest, feeling the weight of the decision I was about to make. I had all the information. I knew who was involved, where the money was flowing, and how deeply Janice had gotten herself caught up in this web. But knowing all of that didn't make it any easier. It just made me feel more powerless. I had come to the point where I knew this wasn't just about saving my daughter anymore. It wasn't about reclaiming the house or fixing the damage Terry and Markel had caused. No, this had become something much darker. My daughter was part of something much bigger than I had ever anticipated. And I had to do something about it, whether she was ready for it or not. The investigator had given me enough information to know where the meeting was happening. He had said it was crucial, an opportunity to confront Markel and Terry before their shady dealings escalated any further. I didn't know what kind of trouble they were in, but I knew it was serious. And I also knew that if I didn't act soon, I might lose Janice forever. I stepped inside the building, the familiar feeling of dread making my stomach twist. I had no backup, no one to help me, just me and my knowledge. But something told me that I had to go alone. I had to make this decision for myself. The hallway was empty, eerily quiet, and I tried to calm my breath as I made my way down the corridor. I'd done my research. I knew how Markel and Terry operated. I knew how far they were willing to go to cover up their crimes. But what I didn't know was how far they had pushed Janice into this world, and if she was beyond saving. I reached the door, my heart in my throat, and knocked. The sharp sound echoed in the silence. I didn't wait for a response, though I knew they'd hear me. I had to confront them. I had to make them see what they had done to my family. Markel opened the door. His face was colder than I remembered, the charm he used to wield replaced with something more calculating. You? He looked at me with surprise but no warmth. His eyes quickly narrowed, assessing me. What do you want? I want answers, I said, my voice shaking. But I couldn't back down now. I know everything about you, about Terry, about the money, and about Janice. I know how deep you've dragged her into this, and I want to know why. Markel stepped back, motioning for me to enter. Come in, Susan. I don't think you fully understand what's going on here, but you will soon enough. I stepped into the room, every instinct telling me to turn and run, but I stayed because there was no turning back now. I had to hear them out. Terry was sitting at the table, a smirk playing on his lips as he looked me over. Susan, it's been a while, he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. What's the matter? Come to make things right? You're too late. My heart raced as I tried to keep my composure. This isn't about me, Terry. This is about Janice. She doesn't deserve to be caught up in this life you've dragged her into. I know what you're doing. I know about the money laundering, the fraud, and how you've used her to cover your tracks. How could you do this to your own wife? Terry's eyes darkened, and I could see the anger bubbling up inside him. You don't understand, Susan. You think Janice is just some innocent bystander in all this? She's not. She knew exactly what she was doing. She's been helping me. You can blame me all you want, but Janice chose to be part of this. And now she's in it too deep. I felt my heart sink. So, this is all her fault now? You're blaming my daughter for the mess you created? You've lied to her, manipulated her, and now you want to turn this around on her? How dare you? Markel, who had been silent until now, leaned in. You still don't get it, do you? Janice is the key. She was the perfect person to get involved in all this. She's smart, connected, and most importantly, she's loyal. That's what makes her dangerous, and that's why we brought her in. She wasn't just some pawn in our game, Susan. She was the one who helped us get ahead. The truth hit me like a freight train. Janice wasn't just a victim in all of this. She had been complicit. She had been helping Terry and Markel all along, knowingly or not. They had used her, just as much as she had used them. I felt sick. My daughter, the woman I had raised to be strong, to be independent, had willingly stepped into a world of crime and deceit. And worse, she hadn't trusted me enough to tell me what was happening. You've ruined her, I whispered, the words feeling like acid in my throat. You've destroyed her, Terry, and I will not let you destroy her any further. Markel smiled, almost pitying me. You've already lost, Susan. You just don't know it yet. I turned and walked out, my heart heavy with the truth. I couldn't save Janice. She had already chosen her path. Have you ever had to confront someone you love for something that broke your trust? How did you handle it? Please share your experience below. I walked out of that building feeling like a shell of the person I once was. The truth had hit me harder than I could have ever prepared for. Janice, my own daughter, had been a willing participant in this web of lies, betrayal, and crime. I thought I could save her. I thought I could fix everything. But in that moment, I realized she was already too far gone. I had confronted Terry and Markel, but I knew in my heart that wasn't the end of it. It wasn't just about stopping them anymore. It was about saving Janice, even if she didn't realize she needed saving. But how could I pull her out of this? How could I make her see that the path she was on would lead to nothing but destruction? The next few days were a blur. I barely slept, barely ate. The shock had turned into a dull, persistent ache in my chest. I kept thinking about what Markel had said, that Janice was the key. She wasn't just some innocent bystander. As I had hoped, she had been involved from the start, and she had made choices that I could never undo. But I couldn't give up on her. I couldn't. I reached out to Janice, but there was no response. I left message after message, begging her to meet me, to talk. But each time, the silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I knew she was avoiding me, but what else could I do? I couldn't force her to see the truth. I couldn't force her to wake up. All I could do was wait. Then, on the fourth day after my confrontation with Terry and Markel, I got a call. "Mom, it's me, Janice." My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't expected to hear her voice again. Not like this. She sounded tired, broken, and I knew deep down that this was the moment I had been waiting for. "Janice, where are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. I had to steady myself. I wasn't sure what to expect from her now. I I don't know what to do, Mom. I've made so many mistakes. I don't know how to fix this. I'm in over my head," she said, her voice cracking. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't know what I was getting into. I felt a rush of relief flood through me. There was still hope. She was finally starting to see it. But I knew we had to move quickly. The longer she stayed involved with Terry and Markel, the more dangerous it became for all of us. I'm coming to get you, Janice. We'll figure this out. I'll help you, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, but inside, my heart was racing. I don't think I can get away. Markel, he's dangerous, Mom. They're watching me. I don't know who to trust anymore. Her words hit me like a cold slap. Markel had made sure she felt cornered, trapped, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. I had to get her out. Listen to me, Janice. You don't have to face this alone. I'm your mother, and I'll protect you. You don't have to stay with them. I will do whatever it takes to get you out of this. You don't belong in their world. There was silence on the other end, but I could hear the hitch in her breath. She was crying, and in that moment I knew we had reached the tipping point. She was ready to come back to me. She was ready to let go of the life she'd been holding on to. I'll come. I'll meet you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But I don't know how to get away from them. They're always watching. We'll figure it out. I'll be there soon. Just stay where you are. I'll get you out. I promise. I didn't wait another second. I grabbed my coat, my heart pounding with every step. I wasn't going to let her down again. When I arrived at the meeting spot, I was shaking, but I couldn't stop. I didn't know what to expect. Would she come? Would she be too scared to leave? And then I saw her. Janice stepped out from behind a corner, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. But there was something else there, too, hope. She had finally realized that she didn't have to keep living this lie. She didn't have to keep being their pawn. Mom, she said, her voice trembling as she ran toward me. I'm so sorry. I was so lost. I know, baby, I said, wrapping her in my arms. I know, but we'll fix this together. You don't have to go back. Not ever. For the first time in a long while, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. It wasn't going to be easy. There was still so much to untangle, so much damage done. But this was the beginning of something new. It wasn't too late for Janice. It wasn't too late for us. And as we walked away from that life, I couldn't help but wonder, would we ever truly be free? Or would the past always come back to haunt us? But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. We had a chance, and that was enough. Do you think it's ever too late for someone to change, or can redemption always be found? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.